The winds of change continue to blow through Tuscaloosa. Players coming and players going, and much more tonight on Tider Insider Television.
Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Well, mark this down as things you thought you would probably never see. Lane Kiffin in crimson, wearing the script A on his chest. The Tide's new offensive coordinator hit the recruiting trail hard this past week, visiting several prospects, including Auburn commitment and Mr. Football, Rock Thomas of Oxford High School. And good evening, everybody, and welcome into Tider Insider TV alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris. Our program brought to you every week by Buffalo Rock, proud bottlers of Pepsi-Cola products. Tonight, Pepsi Next, which gives you all that great Pepsi flavor. With 2/3 less sugar, only 60 calories per 12-ounce can. You can't beat that, Rodney. Well, we got a lot to cover tonight. Bo Scarborough's mom said Coach Kiffin even sang Sweet Home Alabama karaoke style. Nick Saban did the electric slide, and it's officially the off season. Now, don't be alarmed, but we'll be putting up your tweets throughout the show. So if you see the Twitter bubble come up, that's the explanation. Tweet us at #TiderInsiderTV. Well, Rodney, it's crunch time in recruiting. Signing day is only a couple of weeks away. The coaches are working up on finishing up what could be another top-rated class, and sometimes current players are also deciding what to do about their own futures, whether they stay in Crimson or if they move on somewhere else. We had player movement this past week. 2 players have announced that they are going elsewhere. Luke Del Rio, a walk-on quarterback who many thought might battle for the starting job in the spring, announced via Twitter that he would be transferring. He indeed is going to enroll at Oregon State University. And backup running back Alvin Kamara also announced his intention of transferring away from the University of Alabama. Rodney, it's just part of the era in which we live in, player attrition from all teams. You have so many highly rated players, only a certain amount of spots where guys can play, so a little bit of this is expected every year.
Yeah, I think it happens, and, you know, with Del Rio's situation, not really sure exactly what went into that thinking, because he was a guy that was considered to, you know, certainly would have a great opportunity to compete this spring for that spot.
Let's talk specifically about the quarterback situation as you look at the players that are moving on. Some of those NFL early draft entries, we'll talk more about that in a moment when we talk about the Senior Bowl. But quarterback now with Del Rio out, Cornwell is in, and even though we thought that he was going to be very limited, he's working, and we'll see some more of that in a moment too, him already throwing. But what's the quarterback situation looking like for the spring? Well,
when you look at it for the spring, obviously you have Blake Sims, who is back, and a guy that's worked in a role that's gotten some reps over the past 2 years. And, you know, he's a very athletic guy, maybe not fitting the system in terms of what they've done in the past. Alec Morse, there you see him, the redshirt freshman, be a sophomore, redshirt sophomore. Cooper Bateman will be a freshman that was redshirted this past year. And then you have Parker McLeod, who's still in the mix too. He's also a freshman. There you see him making that throw in last year's Spring's 8A game. But again, those guys, those last 2 will be redshirt freshmen. And then, you know, we'll see what happens past that. You know, Jacob Coker at Florida State's now a guy that's a quote-unquote recruitable guy. And, you know, we've heard all the speculation for months now that he may be transferring to Alabama, but that'll be at a later date.
All right, again, send us those tweets. We want to hear from you. Another story making the rounds from this weekend, one that isn't positive for one of the newest members of the Crimson Tide. Freshman cornerback and early enrollee Tony Brown, also of the track team, was arrested for resisting and disobeying officers here in Tuscaloosa. Now, Rodney, let's discuss this. Nick Saban said today at the Senior Bowl, wrong place, wrong time, but that he hopes Brown learns a lesson. There have been some eyewitnesses that say that the police did not handle this well. Regardless of that, when you're asked to disperse in a crowd situation, you need to do so. This is an arrest. We don't want to make light of that. At the same time, it's not necessarily a crime, and it doesn't sound like something that's going to keep Tony Brown out of spring practice.
Well, you know, everybody I talked to in Beaumont, Gary, from his head coach, Keith McGee, on down at Ozen High School, had nothing but glowing things to say about him and in terms of his character and, you know, how he represented himself and his family and the high school there. And, you know, again, he's a young guy, just got here enrolled in January, fresh out of high school, and, you know, I think there's a lot of things that people of that age have to learn, and maybe he learned his lesson.
Again, Nick Saban said today at the Senior Bowl that Brown will be disciplined internally. but that he hopes he learns a lesson from it. Not a great weekend to have that happen with a lot of big recruits on campus, but this was at a track party, so really didn't involve any of the football recruits. Here's the recruiting calendar. The dead period just ended on January 15th, so coaches have been out on the road. Official visits have been happening. The dead period will begin again on February 2nd, leading up to National Signing Day on February the 5th. Well, more to discuss on the program, including our spring practice preview for this week. We look at Alabama's defensive line under new coach, who's an old coach, Bo Davis. Plus, former Alabama players show their skills in Mobile this week. We'll talk to a couple of NFL hopefuls and why two marquee players, formerly of Alabama, didn't decide to play in the game. That's coming up after the break. And, of course, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information on the screen. Interact with Tider Insider TV right now. Go ahead and give us a call, send us an email, or contact us via social media. We'll be right back with the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV will return after this break. You know, they say you can always go home, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to play in the Senior Bowl. Tide captains A.J. McCarron and C.J. Mosley both decided to forego the Senior Bowl invitations at the advice of their agents. It's a blow to the game since both are from Mobile, but they're also both expected to be chosen highly in the draft. Mosley certainly is a first-round draft pick, and McCarron believes that he will be as well. But for A.J., some experts don't agree with his decision to skip the game, Rodney, but he says that he figures that he has a chance to be a top 20 pick. He doesn't want to take any chance on getting hurt. He is going to work out the combine, so we'll see what happens. But fortunately, other players from the Crimson Tide did make the trip down I-65 to the Port City. Let's talk about some of these guys that are at the game. And right off the bat, we see Adrian Hubbard, who really could help himself with a good performance here. Yeah, Adrian, you know, he was a high school basketball player, great athlete. Gary, he's got a lot of skills, and again, he's still probably a really raw player. And Kevin Norwood, I tell you, he's one of those guys, I think people don't look at him as being flashy, but man, he can play football. Yeah, I've always loved Kevin Norwood from the day he got here, Alabama. I thought he was an outstanding athlete. You remember the things that he did. I mean, when he first started here in terms of the scrimmages, he was making big plays. And, you know, the great game he had as a sophomore year against LSU in the national championship game, I mean, he's just a great athlete. And Cody Mandel certainly has a chance to make a roster. Ed Stinson, the defensive lineman, scheduled to play in the game, but growing muscle pull is going to keep him out of the game in all probability. Still, though, some Alabama guys with a chance to shine. And here's Nick Saban from earlier today at the Senior Bowl.
Well, I think it's great that the NFL has this event in the state of Alabama. It's great for, you know, Mobile. Football is really important to us in our state, and this is an area of the state that has always had great football. So we're really happy for our players who get to participate in this game, and we're certainly here today to support all of them, and it's always interesting to see a lot of old friends from the NFL as well. So always a day we look forward to.
An opportunity for me to go out and you know, show the scouts what I can do, and just go out and play my best, and showing that I'm working hard and trying to get to the next level.
Two of the players in the Senior Bowl, even though Stinson is out with an injury, are from the Tide's defensive line. And they're going to be tough to replace as we look at our senior notes, but a lot of depth remains. And as we continue our spring practice previews tonight, let's talk about the defensive line. New coach Bo Davis is in Tuscaloosa. Really, he's an old coach, coached for Nick Saban at Alabama and at LSU and with the Dolphins before into Texas. And a lot of people excited to have him back. Certainly, while he was here, Alabama had a lot of highly rated defensive linemen that went on to the National Football League. Yeah, Gary, I thought he did an excellent job when he was here the first time. He's a really good recruiter. He relates well to the players, and you know, I thought he did an outstanding job. He tutored some of the best that's been here: Terrence Cody, Marcel Darius, Brandon Dedrick, Lorenzo Washington, some really good players. Josh Chapman too. So he just did an outstanding job in his previous stint here. And you know, one thing about it, Gary, you always want people who want to be here. And he's a guy that has wanted to be back here basically since the day he left. All right, Stinson and Pagan gone from the interior defensive line. Hubbard, even though he's an outside linebacker, lines up on the line of scrimmage a lot. Let's talk about some guys that you're going to be looking at in the spring, starting with A'Shawn Robinson. Well, we know all about A'Shawn Robinson, number 86. Had a great freshman year, true freshman, led the team in sacks with 5.5. And, you know, he's just he's a rare talent, Gary, with his size and his ability. Rodney, one thing we're going to be looking for, and I know with Lance Thompson and Bo Davis, it's going to be a priority, and that's guys that can get after the passer. Any thoughts there on some guys like Jonathan Allen and some others that could rush off the edge?
Yeah, and I thought Jonathan Allen coming down the stretch last year had a great finish. I think when you look at D-liner, I think he's a guy that has the potential to rush the passer. There's Dalvin Tomlinson. Don't know how much he'll go through spring practice and because of that knee injury that he suffered leading into the Texas A&M game early last year. But you know, Gary, they've got some other guys. Jaron Reed, I think he's going to be real exciting to watch. The junior college transfer from East Mississippi Community College was really highly touted. You remember last year he signed with Florida, didn't make it academically, didn't graduate from East Mississippi, went back, so he's got 2 years here at Alabama. And DJ Petway, he's back. Now you're talking about a guy that can rush the passer. He helped East Mississippi, he and Jaron Reed both did, to the national championship this year. He had 11.5 sacks. So those two guys should certainly help the defensive front. And
the great thing about Petway is we know already that he can do it on this level.
Oh, yeah.
He got after the pretty good quarterback.
Absolutely.
Pretty good as a freshman.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, the year away allowed him to mature, and I think he's going to be an outstanding player.
All right, Rodney, here's a look at the next several weeks in our spring football previews. Next week, we'll take a look at the linebacking core. Make sure you tune in for that as we count down towards the start of spring practice 2014. Well, coming up next on the show, one of those early enrollees expected to be a part of the Alabama quarterback race shows off his rehab knee. Plus, we're welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information on the screen. Interact with Tider Insider TV right now. So go ahead and give us a call so you can get on the line, send us an email, or contact us on social media. We'll be right back with the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. How about this? David Cornwell recently had knee surgery, but he's showing you that he's been rehabbing hard. The video's a little blurry, but still on Instagram this past weekend, Cornwell put out this video showing that he's working hard and that he's ready to compete for the Tide quarterback spot this spring. All right, Rodney, with that, let's head to the phone lines. And first up tonight is our buddy Joseph in Tuscaloosa. Joseph, what's up? Joseph, you with us?
Yeah, I'm right here.
All right, go ahead, Joseph.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you, who would y'all money be on far as the next quarterback to replace A.J. McCarron?
Well, Joseph, Rodney kind of broke it down a little bit earlier, and if you had to, since he asked the question, do you have a favorite?
Well, I mean, that's really hard to say. I mean, you got a lot of guys that are competing. I certainly would hate to go out on a limb right now, Joseph, because those guys are going to compete in the spring. But, you know, we'll see what happens as time goes on. I think I mentioned Jacob Coker, and, you know, when you talk about him, Gary, the possible transfer from Florida State, he's looking to transfer. Alabama's been the school that's been speculated, so we'll see what happens. But certainly I think, you know, that position won't be determined until probably in fall camp.
You got Blake Sims, who was the backup last year out in Morris, served as the third quarterback. If Coker transfers into Alabama, would he be the favorite?
You know, again, I think certainly he would be transferring here under the thought that he had a great opportunity to win the job. I mean, he's number 2 at Florida State, and he certainly competed very heavily with Jameis Winston and almost won that job. It went to the last week of fall camp. You know, I would have to say certainly he would be the guy if I, you know, wanted to project something just as a guess. I would think he would have to be. You know, certainly be a guy right at the top. But, you know, again, the other guys certainly going to get their opportunity to compete.
Yeah, and he's got to get here first.
That's right.
Not here yet. All right, let's go to Anniston and talk with Harold. Harold, welcome to the program.
Good morning, guys.
Yeah, go ahead, Harold.
Yeah, I was looking to see I saw that Pruitt went to Georgia as a defensive coordinator. Is that making it look even better for us to get Marlon Humphrey here?
Well,
And, I was thinking about how we looking with any other cornerback, somebody like Odell Jackson.
Okay. You know, as far as Marlon Humphrey goes, you know, Harold, in the situation with Jeremy Pruitt going to Georgia, you know, I don't think when you look at Florida State's situation, they don't have a defensive coordinator now. They don't have a secondary coach. So, you know, he's got to be asking who's that going to be. Certainly that has to play some sort of a role in his decision. And again, when you look at Alabama, you look at the things involved there with Nick Saban, produces NFL first-round corners faster than anyone. You look at, you know, the ties to the school here at Alabama with Bobby Humphrey. I mean, you know, logic tells you that, you know, Alabama certainly being 50 miles down the road would be difficult to beat. But, you know, I don't know. I hear he likes Florida State a lot. I hear he likes their track program. you know, we'll see. But if I had to guess, I would say Marlon Humphrey would end up at Alabama. As far as any other corners, right now I think, you know, Chris Williams is a guy that's committed to Alabama as a safety, but he did play cornerback this year. I know when he was on his visit, he told us that Alabama talked to him about the possibility of maybe seeing some action at corner, getting a look there. So that would be a possibility to consider, you know, in this class. But, you know, I really don't know that they would get another corner. If not Marlon Humphrey, they'd have to find somebody.
All right, Harold, thanks for the phone call. Let's get an email question in. This one comes to us from Stephen Hoover. What are Alabama's chances looking like with Matt Elam? Elam, the big nose tackle, defensive tackle type out of Kentucky, has narrowed it down to Alabama and Kentucky and officially visited Tuscaloosa this past weekend.
Yeah, he did. And, Gary, you know, he's got a great first step. I watched him in that Army All-American game, and he reminded me of that first step a little bit of Terrence Cody. And, you know, he's about 372, so he's not he's about Cody's size. But, you know, I really think right now that in the end, Alabama is going to be the team to beat. I do think that there's a lot of pull in the state of Kentucky for him to stay there. I think that, you know, that weighs on him considerably. He doesn't want to let his friends and people around him down by choosing a school outside of the state of Kentucky, not playing for the hometown Wildcats. But, you know, right now I think that he also realizes he's got a chance of a lifetime, and it's might be too difficult to pass up at Alabama.
Saw an interesting tweet right there. Some are saying this could be Bama's best class ever in recruiting. Well, more to come on Tider Insider TV, including more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information popping up on your screen right there, so interact with Tider Insider TV, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email us at the address, or Twitter, #Tider Insider TV. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the award-winning Tider Insider Television. He committed to Alabama back in 2012, so it's been a long time coming for Bo Scarborough. He reaffirmed his commitment to the Tide this past week, though, and he also announced plans to transfer back to Tuscaloosa County High School from the IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida, so he'll get his diploma from TCHS in the spring and hopefully be on the UA campus shortly thereafter. All right, it's time to take some more phone calls. Let's talk with Charles, who is on the phone line from Sylacauga. Hey, Charles, how are you?
All right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, is Darius Hayes coming back for the spring, and how would their defense be for Alabama?
Charles, I don't think so. I mean, I've not heard that there's any consideration being given to that. I mean, he was disqualified medically before the season started, and I haven't heard that he'll be back.
As far as the defense overall, we know that we're losing some guys, as we mentioned earlier, and might be a little bit of a different look with some new old coaches coming back on the field, probably in Bo Davis and Kevin Steele possibly.
Well, you've just got so many guys to replace. I mean, when you look at it, C.J. Mosley was a leader, certainly one of the team leaders. I mean, you've got to replace him, and that'll be a key. You know, I think maybe the corners have some more experience, so that'll be helpful. But at the safety spot, you've lost Clinton Dix. Now Vinny Sinceri's also gone. But, again, you have some guys that can step up. Landon Collins is a guy that started the last half of the season, did an outstanding job. You know, Jarek Williams, Geno Smith. You know, guys like that have experience at the safety spot, Gary, so they should be okay. Nick Perry's supposed to come back. So it looks like that, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how they all come together. And, again, we talked about that defensive front earlier in the show, and we talked about how exciting that could be with some guys, maybe adding some guys like DJ Petway, Jaron Reed, and see how D. Liner, you know, a guy that was young, and see how he developed over the season. So, you know, they certainly have some potential. All
right, Charles, thanks for the phone call. Let's get to an email from Terry in Northport. Who do you think will replace C.J. Mosley, right? It's a good question. All-American leaving, Reuben Foster maybe, possibly some others working in the mix.
You know, the way they've moved him around a little bit, I know that Dylan Lee had played, you know, on the outside, played at the Sam spot. It'd be interesting to see. They've moved these guys around quite a bit, but, you know, really you can't replace him. He's very, very difficult player to replace in terms of, you know, his ability and the things he brought from a leadership standpoint. So, but they have some guys to work with, Gary, and that's one of the things that's going to make spring really interesting. You talked about Reuben Foster. I mean, he was an extremely highly touted player. You know, Alabama had him committed, and, you know, switched to Auburn, and then Alabama got him back late last year. And I think a lot of people expected maybe too much of him this year to step right in and play, but it takes time to learn. And I think this season and then going through that and then having spring practice is certainly going to allow him an opportunity to be ready to maybe to contribute this year in a more significant way.
All right, real quickly, let's get in one more phone call from Ed at Smith Lake. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, I was wondering what you thought about Vincenzi leaving early. I mean, I'm wondering where's head's at.
All right, Ed. Well, he hasn't really talked about it, so we don't know. You can surmise some things. He got hurt this year. Maybe he didn't want to risk another injury. Maybe he wasn't happy, I've heard, playing on special teams. But, he's going to try it at the next level. But hopefully at some point he'll give his reasons.
Yeah, and again, I think obviously it was his choice and his decision. I mean, you look at it, though, Gary, and you see a guy that, this guy was destined to be a team captain. He was going to have his handprint, cleat prints, Bryant-Denny forever. And, he passed up that opportunity. And, I'm not sure what round he'll go in, but hopefully it's worthwhile for him.
I think a lot of people are disappointed by his decision, but he's the one that it matters to the most, and hopefully it'll work out for him in the NFL. All right, next up on the show, an update on Alabama basketball and gymnastics as we get into the heart of the season for both those teams. Thanks for your phone calls and emails. Tider Insider TV will return right after the break. It was another up-and-down week for Alabama men's basketball. A home win against Mississippi State in easy fashion, followed by a big loss on the road at Missouri. The Tide at 8-9 overall, 2-2 in the SEC. And a big week coming up. They host Florida on Thursday night and LSU on Saturday, and they need to win both of those. Here's the schedule this week for the Tide athletic program. Men's hoops has those two tough home games, while the women are at Kentucky Thursday and home against Georgia on Sunday. Gymnastics will host a home meet against Arkansas Friday night. That is the Power of Pink meet, by the way, so get out there and check it out. Another note before we get out of here, Alabama softball ranked 6th in the USA Today preseason poll, and it's dinner time, Rodney. We're headed to Dickey's Barbecue Pit down on 69 South. Come and join us about 20 minutes from now. Also, our shirts, as always, provided by The Locker Room, a Tuscaloosa tradition since 1964, home of the original elephant wear. Get by and see them on the University Strip, or check them out online and get you some of this great elephant wear or any of their other terrific menswear. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. You can catch our show on our website anytime, WVUA-TV.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Good night, everybody.